Welcome to the Vegas Insider channel here on YouTube as we take a look at SEC best bets for this Saturday. And we bring on Brian Edwards, who joins us every week on this segment. And Brian with 4 picks coming up this week in SEC action. And Brian, let's begin with Missouri and Tennessee. The Tigers coming off a tough loss in overtime at Boston College last week. Tennessee fell at the Swamp to Florida. And the Tigers here, a field goal favorite against the Vols.
Yeah, so I love Missouri here, minus the 3. Since Eli Drinkwitz took the job, he is 6-2, straight up at home. The 2 losses were to the eventual national champion Alabama in the season opener last year. They covered in that game. The other was against Georgia when they had a bunch of COVID issues at the end of the year. So outside of Georgia and Alabama, 2 of the top teams in the country, maybe, Georgia might not have been a top 5 team last year, but undefeated other than that at home. Tyler Beatty, the running back for Mizzou, is having an outstanding season. He's second in the SEC in rushing yards with 417. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns, a 6.3 yards per carry average. He also has, 20 catches for 176 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those 8 touchdowns are tied for number 1 in the SEC with Keyshawn Butte, who we'll talk about with LSU in a minute. But, so Missouri has lost by 7 at Kentucky, still undefeated Kentucky. They've lost in overtime at still undefeated Boston College. And they won by double digits against some cupcake foes at home. But Connor Bazelak is having a really good year, 68.8% completion percentage, 1,200 passing yards, 10-3 TDI&T ratio. Hendon Hooker got banged up for Tennessee last week. So we'll see. He's listed as questionable. We'll see if it's him or Joe Milton. I think Hooker's a lot better than Milton. But regardless, I think we have the quarterback advantage and the head coaching advantage. And Tennessee has lost 4 of its last 5 SEC road games by double-digit margins. And the only exception was a win over Vanderbilt last year when Vanderbilt went 0-9. So good recent history under Drinkwitz at home for Mizzou. Bad road history for Tennessee. Of late, Tennessee has beaten Bowling Green and Tennessee Tech, but they lose to Pitt at home, and they lose at Florida. I think they lose at Mizzou, Tigers -3.
Another noon kickoff inside of the SEC. This is a big one. Arkansas and Georgia. The Bulldogs have been dynamic so far this year. Remember, they beat Clemson to begin the season, and Georgia coming off a blowout of Vanderbilt last week. Meanwhile, when you look at the Arkansas Razorbacks, they have had some big wins on the season, beating Texas and Texas A&M already, and now Arkansas a heavy underdog against Georgia this week, Brian.
Yeah, so during the Kirby era, they are 12-17 against the spread as home favorites. Now, I'm not trying to diminish Georgia's defense. They certainly passed the eye test. We're now 4 games deep, so I think we can kind of start using national statistics, whereas with a 2-game, 3-game sample, I think it's kind of pointless. But Georgia, number 1 in the nation in total defense and scoring defense. However, they have faced Clemson, UAB, South Carolina, and Vandy. Clemson, number 21 in the country in total offense. UAB, number 79 out of 130 FBS teams. This is obviously, and South Carolina, number 115 out of 130 in total offense. Vandy, number 123 nationally in total offense. So they have not faced offensive juggernauts, to say the least. Now, my concern is, maybe a slight letdown because they, A&M and Arkansas is a big rivalry, and they had not beaten them since they were in the SEC. But I don't know, battle of unbeatens, I don't know that a letdown really applies. Now, legit concern is KJ Jefferson's knee injury. It is a bruise, though. I'm sure he's getting great treatment. I think he's going to play, but is he going to be 100%? because not only it might take away some of his speed, but he's kind of Tebow-esque in his running. He is a physical runner, especially for a quarterback. He seeks out linebackers and looks to punish them. It might take away a little bit. But now their backup is a former, or probably still is for the track. He's a track star. I mean, he's got track type speed. Malik Hornsby is who I'm talking about. So that might be needed to get away from UGA's pressure. So I'm going with Arkansas plus 18.5. Do I have some slight concerns? Sure. But 4-0 both straight up and against the spread. Pittman was on Georgia's staff. He knows what they're about. And, Arkansas, I love their linebackers, Bumper Pool and Grant Morgan, and then Jalen Catalon in the secondary is one of the best safeties in the country. I think he'll pick off JT Daniels at least once. And Arkansas will hang around and give Georgia a tough game, in my opinion, plus 18.5.
Now let's take a look at a non-conference game at 3:30. Troy and South Carolina, they meet up in Columbia. The Gamecocks are 2-2 so far in the season. The Trojans out of the Sun Belt, they're at 2-2, and South Carolina is a touchdown favorite.
Yeah, so South Carolina's offense has not been able to generate much, but look, they're off 2 losses to 2 undefeated teams. They lost 16-10 at home to Kentucky, but their defense was dynamite. I mean, their defense kept turning Kentucky over, kept giving the offense chances, and the offense just didn't get it done. Now, South Carolina did cover in that game against Georgia, but Zeb Nolan, who'd been playing well at quarterback, got his hand stepped on, and he hasn't played a play since. But Luke Doty, he's getting better. He had a foot injury in the preseason, and I don't even know if he would really be playing yet if Nolan hadn't gotten hurt. But he seems to be getting better. He's thrown it well. He hasn't really had his mobility, but I'm sure that's coming back a little better. And obviously against a Troy team, and Troy's offense is struggling bad. They're ranked number 127 out of 130 FBS teams in rushing. They're number 104 in total offense, number 87 in scoring. And they're facing a really good South Carolina defensive line. And South Carolina is at home. Look, they've got a 2-2 record. In Shane Beamer's first year, a bowl game would be great for them. And they have to win this game if they have any aspirations for a bowl, because they have at Tennessee next week and Vandy at home. And then they could maybe even potentially beat Auburn at home. They did it last year, and Auburn has not looked like gangbusters, especially last week. So I'm going to go with South Carolina, counting on their defense to get it done for us. Their defense is number 27 nationally, total defense, number 18 against the pass, number 34 in scoring D. They only give up 18.3 points per game. I think South Carolina -7 is the play. And
finally, the 9 o'clock Eastern kick in Death Valley in Baton Rouge, the Battle of the Tigers, LSU and Auburn. And Auburn, who lost to Penn State 2 weeks ago, they struggled against Georgia State last week. Now let's see what they'll do as a road underdog facing LSU this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with LSU. Now, the number is 3.5. If you can buy that half point to 3, that would be preferable. Look, Max Johnson is playing terrific. 15-3 TD-INT ratio. As a true freshman last year, he was 8-1 TD-INT. So now he is 23-4 TD-INT ratio for his career. Keyshawn Boutte looks like the best receiver perhaps in the SEC. 24 receptions, 308 yards, 8 touchdowns already. And look, that defense that could not tackle against UCLA was much improved last week against Mississippi State. Now, it was a 28-25 final, but LSU was kind of playing some prevent defense with they had a 28-10 lead, and Mississippi State was kind of dinking and dunking and getting some junk yardage, and while LSU was letting them eat clock. So I think the LSU defensive performance last week in Starkville was not as good in the final box score, but for 3 quarters they shut down a Mike Leach offense. I like LSU, and obviously Georgia, or excuse me, Auburn. They struggled last week, getting very fortunate to beat Georgia State thanks to a 4th and 9 play. And we don't know if it's going to be Bo Nix or TJ Finley. If it's Finley, he's playing against his former team. And I don't know that that's a good thing necessarily. I like LSU minus the 3.5, hopefully 3.
Let's take a look back at Brian's best bets for this Saturday. Brian will lay the points with Missouri against Tennessee. He's going to take the points with Arkansas against Georgia in a battle of unbeatens. He's going to lay the 7 with South Carolina against Troy in non-conference play, and lay the points with LSU at home against Auburn. Brian Edwards, you could find him on Vegas Insider, his NFL picks as well as his college football selections. Brian, thank you so much. Best of luck. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, K-Raj.
There's Brian Edwards. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching this edition of the SEC Best Bets right here on VegasInsider.com.